Hi everyone, it's Christina from Card Creations and More by C, and I want to make a video for you today with a joyful card. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to try to do most of it all live on video. I did go ahead and cut my pieces already though, and I've got them scored. And so I'm going to give you the sizes here. I just keep a notebook. It's a composition book that I resurfaced with my name on it. And I keep that on hand for my sizes for different card types. So what we have is one piece of paper that's 4.25 by 8.5, and I scored it at 5.5, so it folds this way. Then we have a sheet that's 3.75 by 8, which is scored at 4 inches. Then I have a mat that's 4 1/8 by 4 inches. Then I have a mat that is 3.75 by 3.5, and then 3.5 by 3.25. And then I also have two white strips of paper here. They're 1 inch, one is 3.75 long and one is 4 inches long. And I believe that I cut my cupcake at 3 inches, I think, or 3.5, let me see. No, 3 inches. So we're going to be using the cupcake from Straight from the Nest. I made a few adjustments to it in my gypsy, which I'll talk about when I'm putting it together, but that's cut at 3 inches. And then I have some squares here. One is cut at 1.5, and the other one is cut, I think, at the next dimension between 1.5 and 1 1/4. This one's actually from a Creative Memories 1.5 square maker, and this one's from a Fisker's Squeeze Punch. So that is what we're going to be working with today. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to adhere this pink layer to my patterned paper layer, and I made this so that, I don't know if you can see this, it pretty much gets, it's flush against one end of it, but then there's about 1/4 of an inch around on each side, or actually 1/8 of an inch or whatever it is. So we're going to go ahead and put ATG just on the back side of this so that we can stick it to that layer. So, okay, so I'm just going to fold this right down, and I'm going to just try to line it up the best I can so that it's centered on this piece of pattern paper. Perfect. Now the piece of pattern paper is going to be adhered to our inside, and what we're essentially doing right now is making our card base. So when we adhere this down, this part will lift up, that will close, and that will go over it. So now what we want to do is put our adhesive on the back of the patterned paper. And I'm just going to go ahead and do all 4 sides with ATG gun. Okay. And that looks good. I just checked to make sure I don't have any ATG hanging off the edges. So what I want to do is line this up on the brown so that it's evenly, an even border. And then I'm going to lay it down. So I don't know if you can see that, but I kept an even amount of brown. And now this is the part that you would write your note into somebody, and the card folds and opens like that. So that looks nice. The next thing we're going to do is adhere our 4-inch white strip on the inside. And it's pretty much just a little decorative piece of paper, and I'm using a white textured Coordinations cardstock, which I got on sale at Hobby Lobby for half off. I got a package a while back for half off. So I'm going to adhere that down. So this way you have a little bit of white on the inside of the card as well. It goes like that. Okay. Next, we're going to work with our mats for the front, which are these 2 pieces. First I wanted a nice white layer above the light pink, so we have that first, and then we're going to have our patterned paper. Some of you may notice I don't use a lot of patterned paper in my projects because I'm kind of picky. I like very subtle type of prints, especially for card making, so I'm a little bit fussy about it, but when I find a print that I like, I really enjoy using it. And I'm just going to go ahead and center this on the pink paper like so. And then we're going to go ahead and adhere down the mat of pattern paper. So there we go. So that's going to be our front section of the card. You open it up, that's the inside where you'll write. And then I also have a piece of white paper that's 3.75 for the front. But what I want to do to that before we adhere it down is I want to add these little brads that I got. I want to add them. They're going to actually pretty much match the cherry on our cupcake. So I wanted to throw that color in the card again somewhere. So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to start off by making, I think 3 dots we'll make up here. Let's see if I can space these out somehow. Okay, I think we'll start the first one right about there. I just want to put a little dot so I know exactly where to punch my hole. Move down just a bit and do the next one. So I'm just putting a dot, and then we'll move down a little bit more and put the next one. Stuff like this, I usually do it in an odd number, so that's why I'm using 3 of them. And I'm debating if I want to use my Card.AVI or my 1/8 inch hole punch. I might just use the Card.AVI if I can line it up perfectly. It's very hard for me to line these things up perfectly, but we're going to give this a try. And I'm just using the small punch on the side of it. And the reason why I kind of like this one is because I don't know if you can see it, but it has like a little curve to it, and you can kind of see that you've got your own little dot lined up in the center of that. So I think I'm going to get a straighter punch. And these brads are big enough to cover those holes even though they're a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to start putting my brads in place. And hopefully this turns out nice. I don't use a lot of brads in my project, but I think it's a nice decorative touch, and it's something different than just using bling and other things, so thought we would give it a try. I'm just going to press them down really well to make sure it's nice and flat. So there we go. We have 3 brads right up in the side here that will be up out of the way. So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to use my Crafty Power Tape, since that's going to be a little bit heavy with those metal pieces on there. And I get this at either Joann's or Hobby Lobby. I actually got the last roll at Joann's, actually a roll. This was my backup roll, and I just had to start using it. So usually as soon as I start using one, I go buy another one. So I've always got one on backup. And I look for wherever I can get them on sale. I managed to get that one at Joann's for 40% off, and then I had a coupon for 20% off of sale items. So I think I picked it up for about 60% off, which at normal price it's $10, so I think I paid less than $5 for it. And it's extremely strong adhesive, just like score tape. So it's a really good choice when you're working with something that's heavy and you really want it to stick well. So there we go. That's not going to ever come off. So now we've got our card base all set up, and what I want to do next is start putting our cupcake together. So I think what we'll do, let's see. Now when I was in my Gypsy, I made a blackout feature. I don't think it came with a blackout cut. I can't remember. I might have made the blackout feature myself by hiding these. So this way I could just have a blackout layer. And then on the actual frosting, I hid all the little dots that it wants to cut out. So I went ahead and hid those. So what we're going to do is first we're going to adhere this down. And I think that we're going to use my, there it is. I think we'll just go ahead and use my Elmer's Craft Bond glue, because it does stay wet a little bit longer to give me a chance to get all these detailed parts. And I'm using just this little glue bottle that I got from quilledcreations.com. It's a quilling website that's actually based pretty close to where I live, and they have great prices. But I mean, I think this glue bottle is great even if you're not into quilling. I keep one with my quilling projects where I keep all of my tools, and I keep one right in my regular adhesive section because it does come in handy, especially when you're applying alphabet letters. The reason I like it is because it stays wet a little bit longer than the zig, but it's so fine. This little tip on it is just so fine that you can have tiny amounts of glue. And Elmer's Craft Bond glue is very strong, and it also dries pretty quickly, but you do have that little bit of wiggle room. But once it's on, and it's not going anywhere. Also, it's white, but it dries clear. So it's a good one for card making. I don't know if it would be good for scrapbooking because I don't think that it's acid free, but don't quote me on that because it might be. For my actual cupcake frosting, I think we're going to use the Tombow Mono Aqua. I just picked this up when I was at Joann's. It was only like $3.49, and like I said, I got like 60% off of it, and I'm really liking it. It's a little bit different than the Zig 2A, but I kind of like it, and I don't really find where it's warping my paper, which is nice. So it's a nice little alternative. I really like adhesives. I get hooked on them, and you have a little bit of wiggle room with it, so that's good too. And like I said, I really like all the different adhesives. And I just remembered that I wanted to put that through the Cuttlebug first. So I think that, I wonder if I still can. You know, these things always happen on video because we get making these videos and then we remember something else that we wanted to do. Okay. Well, I think we're just going to go ahead and give this a try anyways. I just wanted to get a little bit of raised up texture to it because I want to put some stickles on it, and I was thinking about using the Divine Swirl Cuttlebug folder. Let me see if I can find that one. I didn't have it ready, of course. There it is. I have so many embossing folders that it's hard to find immediately what I'm looking for. And I think with the Cuttlebug ones, let's see, I want it to be, I want the swirls to be punched upward, so I'm going to need it to go, I believe, like this. Okay, I think I've got this figured out now. Oops, I'm going to sandwich it, the A plate, and then put it between two B plates, and we're going to run it through. And hopefully I've got it facing the right way. And I did. That's exactly what I wanted. That looks really good. So it actually didn't matter that I didn't do it beforehand. It still worked out okay. So, whoops. I think I just hit my tripod. Sorry. Actually, I guess I didn't move it though. Okay. Seems like I'm having bad luck with video making this weekend. Last night I was going to make a video for all of you with this really super cute card I made, and my battery was dead, so I didn't get anywhere with it. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is adhere down our little cherry. And sometimes when I'm making my Cricut cuts, I like to make certain layers more than once on purpose, just to give it more dimension. So I went ahead and cut the cherry 3 times, just so that it would be raised up a little bit without having to use a pop dot. And I'm just using the Aqua Mono. As long as you don't overdo it with it, it shouldn't really come out the edges. So you just need a little bit because it is a little thicker than Zig 2A, so it sort of spreads when you press it in. But it's also clear, so even if you do, you're not really gonna, oops, see, we do have enough wiggle room when it's wet. The other nice thing, if it gets on your craft mat at all, it does just roll right off if you roll it with your fingers. So, There. So now we have our cherry, and it's just raised up a little bit. And I think that we're going to put our cupcake up on Pop Dots. So I think I'll just use my homemade dimensionals that I learned from Janice at cricketology.blogspot.com, and she has a great video that shows you how to make these. And what I like about them, they're a little bit thinner than the regular Pop Dots that you tend to get, and also you can cut them any way that you like. So I've managed to cut them into some pretty skinny pieces. Like when I was making a card, if you look back at my videos, the card that I made with the gazebo, I used these and I had them super skinny to go on those fine little pieces so that I could pop up my gazebo. And I think that these are actually going to be a better value in the long run. So there we go. I've got lots of Pop Dots on that, so it's not going anywhere. So I want to go ahead and adhere this down. And I'm gonna. Usually I like to just grab it with my tweezers so that I can really see without my fingers in the way where it's going. So that looks perfect. Now this card is turning out really pretty, and see how the brads match the cherry. So I really like that. And next thing we're going to do is just put some mono on the back of the square. Now I could use my ATG for this if I wanted, but I'm just going to go ahead and use this. And I'm going to mount that down. Press it in. And then we're going to start working on our sentiments. The first sentiment that I want on the front of this says, "Hey Cupcake," and it's from the Scrappy Mom Stamps Sweet Somethings. So we're going to go ahead and stick that on our block. And I think I'm going to be using Timber Brown Stays On ink. So, and I'm going to be putting it on this pink piece of paper here. I'm just going to go ahead and ink up my stamp. You want to get plenty of ink. And there we go. That looks good. So it says, "Hey Cupcake." Now, we're going to set that aside for just a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this up on my rotary trimmer. I'm just going to trim a little bit off of each side of it too. And as soon as I'm done with this video, I have to go hop in the shower and go to some calling hours, but I'm waiting for my clothes to be dry, so I figured I would go ahead and make a video for all of you. And what I want to do, this is going to be over here, and I want to just put that at an angle on there. So I'm just going to use a little bit of ATG, and it looks like I went a little bit too far with this, so we'll just move it back a little bit. And I want it to be kind of like that, I think. No, a little bit more over. Let's see how that looks. Pretty good. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then we're just going to cut a dimensional for that. And what we want to do is just have it on one side. This might actually, yeah, that's going to be a perfect length. So we want to have it on this side. And the reason we're only putting it on one side is because we want to adhere this down. It's actually going to be going right here over top of our white strip. And so I want to put it flush with the patterned paper at that height, I think. So just want to make sure I get it nice and straight. Stick that down well. And the reason being for that is that's going to be our closure for our front of the card to stay closed. And I think that looks pretty straight, so that looks good. So now when you open up your card, you're just going to go like so. And then when you close it, it can slide back behind, which might take just a minute, like that. So that looks really cute. I love that. Hey Cupcake. Okay, Good, so now when we open up our card, I wanted to do one other sentiment and then leave room for writing. So what I want to do is I'm using from the the Everyday Greetings by Scrappy Moms. It says, wishing you a very happy birthday. And I'm going to go ahead and get that on my block. I'm going to use the same brown ink. I don't even know how long this video is so far, so hopefully I can get this done very quickly. Like I said in other videos, I don't really have a lot of video editing skills, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing, you can always skip ahead. I like to use my cutting mat when I'm stamping to make sure that my paper's nice and straight. And I don't really like that. I gotta do it darker. Brown ink, for some reason, just doesn't stamp as well for me as black ink does. So I'm gonna turn my paper around and stamp it again. Press a little bit harder this time. Why am I having trouble with this one? Let's do it one more time. Okay, that one looks good. I think I just wasn't pressing hard enough. For some reason, the Timber Brown Stays On ink is like the only one that is hard for me to get inked really well. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim this up. And this is what I do. I find with a sentiment, it's just easier for me to stamp it first and then mat it. Now, what I want to do is the same thing like the one on the front. So I want to go ahead and mat this onto my white paper. And I'm just going to leave about the same as when you're doing layers on your cards. And I'm going to go ahead and trim that up. Try to do this quickly. Just kind of want you guys to see the process that I go through when I'm making a card. So, okay, put a couple pieces of adhesive there, and then we're going to go ahead and mat it on top of the brown. And by doing this, I pretty much get it just perfectly matted, and that's what I like. If you try to prejudge it first, it might not look as good. Okay, so now we have our cute little mat. Now that's going to go on the inside. It says, wishing you a very happy birthday. And I'm thinking I'm just going to kind of put it right there at an angle, right on the inside flap when you open it. So this way you still have the whole other section to write your note to somebody. And it says, wishing you a very happy birthday. So I just want to get that right like so. So look how cute that is. Now we've got our card. Hey cupcake. Hey cupcake. And then you open it up, joyful card, and you have your little extra sentiment. And then plenty of room to write a note. And the last touches that we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Well, the other thing that I really have to do right this second is clean my stamps off. You want to make sure that your project is far enough away that you won't splatter it. I've made that mistake before. And I'm just using the Stays On stamp cleaner. Especially when you're using Stays On ink, you really need to clean your stamps almost as soon as you're done with them. And I just scrub them with this, and then I grab a baby wipe and just kind of blot them, and then the rest of the ink comes off. Sometimes you will still notice a little bit of permanent staining, but at least it won't be built up on there. And it won't affect your stamping with other colors later on. Okay, so that's done. Now, I want to use my glossy accents on my little cherry because I want it to look shiny. I think like a maraschino cherry, they always look kind of shiny. So I'm just going to go ahead and squirt some glossy accents over the whole cherry. And that will dry. It takes an hour or so. And it's going to look just clear like it's epoxied. And I really like that look when you want something to stand out and be shiny and glossy looking. And it also raises it up. Okay, so I was quite generous with it. I put quite a thick coat. I don't know if you can actually see that, but it's quite a thick bubble of it. So that's done. And then I want to go ahead and on the swirls, I want to use my pink cotton candy stickles. just on the parts on my that I use the Cuddle Bug to raise up. I thought that that would look really pretty. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing on camera, but you can get, I'll do enough here so you can get the idea what I'm doing. After all of this dries later tonight, I'll take a look at it again and I'll decide if I want to use some white gel pen and do some faux stitching or not. So there we go. I'm not going to do the whole thing on camera, but I'll let you get a look for how that's going to be. So it's just going to accentuate the divine swirls. Oops, my glossy accents are running. And make them pink. So that's all I have time for right now. Thanks for watching.